Welcome. You are listening to the EA View, and we are here today to discuss the archetype of Gemini and June. Welcome, team. How are you today? We've got Chahal from England. Welcome, Rav. London.
Hi.
Actually, London. It's very busy in London right now, isn't it?
It is very busy in London right now, yes.
It's so Gemini in London right now with the Queen and all the parties.
It really is.
The celebration.
Yes.
Well, welcome back. Rav is our researcher. We love Rav, our Capricorn moon, sorry. All right, welcome back, Rav. And we've got Rose Marcus from Vancouver, Canada. Welcome back, Rose.
Hello.
And of course, Deva Green, my neighbor from Ashland, Oregon. Welcome back.
Hello.
And we have a special guest, a newbie. She's not really that new, but she's diving in good and really deeply into this work of EA. Jordan Smith will be interviewing her later on. Welcome, Jordan, to our team.
Hello.
To our gathering.
Yeah.
So Jordan had a dream the other night that she was hanging out with me and my friends on my couch. So I guess that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I texted her and said, hey, we want to interview you. You're doing some incredible things in EA. So I'm so excited to talk to you about that. And we were hoping to have Stacie here, but it's Mercury retrograde craziness. So we may or may not see her later. Hopefully all of you are not feeling riddled with all the chaos, but Mercury is stationary or actually moving direct now, barely. So hopefully we can get a move on. But it is a newsworthy week, and it's going to be a newsworthy month. Classic Gemini. A lot going on in the planet. A lot going on in the US. We've got a few here that are not from the US, but I'm sure you're hearing all about what's going on here. So looking forward to talking about some of that with a key transit of the month. Rose is going to spearhead. But before we do that, last month we were in the Taurus show. We were talking about this crazy trial going on with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and the astronomical amount of money that it's costing both of them, the money that's going out to try and defend themselves and to try and prove the truth of their story. And on June 1st is when the verdict was announced, at least in the US, and Johnny Depp did win that case. So wanted to circle back and just hear what you guys have to say about this. He's got some pretty compelling transits going on. I don't know, if I was his astrologer a month ago, I'd be saying, yep, you're going to win this thing. Clearly, there's a lot here. What do you guys think about this?
Well, I read a commentator that I thought was had just kind of pinpointed it. He said it was a murder-suicide and that they had bloodied each other.
Wow.
And I thought that was very apt for a Scorpio archetype. Her Pluto in Scorpio is in his fourth house. The nodal axis is moving through Scorpio, Taurus, and so on. And despite the fact that he has won, at this point, she says she doesn't have the money to pay. So what's that all about? Is she going to, counter, the decision and so on? What's the fallout on both of their careers, right? So I don't think this is over yet.
Well, I mean, he said the jury gave him his life back. I read somewhere. So honestly, for him, I feel like this is an emotional win. I do think he's going to get, I was reading something about Disney hiring him for, some of these main roles that he played that he, they were blockbusters when he was, I forget, is it a pirate?
Pirates. Yeah. And also, the J.K. Rowling stuff, right?
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So look at Mercury. He's a Gemini, and Mercury's state was stationary, pretty close to stationary direct, almost stopped right on his Venus on that day. And we have Pluto trining that Venus essentially, and Mercury. So he had a lot of leverage with this, at least astrologically speaking, around this time for that.
Well, and I think that Pluto in the sixth house, that transit, that idea of vindication, for feeling feeling that victimization piece, and you certainly got all those Virgo planets as well too. So I agree with you in terms of him feeling that it's an emotional victory. And does he really need to claim that money from her anyway? I mean, doesn't he have enough already? So I don't really even know that it's about the money so much.
Well, if she's going to appeal it, which I'm also hearing about, where is she going to get the money to do that?
Right. So is it all talk right now?
Yeah. And Saturn return, he just came through. He's going to have 3 of them, not 1, not 2, but 3. You use this expression, Rose, a lot, not a lot, but at the right moment, getting real. It's about getting real when you've got Saturn around. Crazy. All right. What about you, Rob? Anything?
Well, I was just thinking of the fact that in 2020 in the UK, it was a similar case, and he lost that Liberal lawsuit where the judge found him guilty, but he had sued the newspaper The Sun for using the word wife beater.
Oh.
And he lost that case in 2020. But if I can't really recall what transits would have been happening then, but he wouldn't have been at his Saturn return exactly. It would have been before. So maybe Saturn return was like you just said, getting real, kind of him trying to take his power back and be like, I need to show the world what is my truth. From that perspective. And as like Rose said, I don't feel this is over by any means. We've still got the South Node in Scorpio going to be hitting his Neptune in Scorpio in the 4th house. And then his house of relationships, which I look at as the 8th house, is Pisces, which is ruled by that Neptune in the 4th house. I think there's still going to be more to come from both of them. I actually feel.
Rob, was that 2020, that judgment?
Yes.
Okay, so in 2020, the nodes were in Gemini Sag, and they would have been squaring as Virgo.
Right. Yes. Okay. So yeah, he's a brilliant case, both of them. And I know we don't really have Amber's time. I believe she's only got like a 12 noon time, but in terms of looking at their story together, it's a movie in itself.
We don't have her time, but her Venus is at 24 degrees of Taurus, so it's right on that Mercury of his and she's got Pluto at 6 degrees Scorpio, which is just over the icy cusp, right? And Jupiter on his Chiron, and a few other things in the chart. So I just think that the Pluto position in the 4th house in Scorpio, is that on Lilith? Is that Lilith at 5 degrees in his chart there?
Oh, the resolution, yes.
Yeah. So I think it's maybe an ancient battle that they're doing.
So,
I definitely. Sorry.
Can anyone hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yay, welcome.
I just wanted to add, this hits very close to home for me because I was framed once for assault. As somebody who made things up and staged things, and it is incredibly traumatic. It is incredibly traumatic. And, certain people believe the appearances, and, I didn't get resolution in mine, and it destroyed me. And, this Jupiter, it's like Rose was saying, it's not about the money. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't want the money. It's about the principle. And so that Jupiter, right across from his Mars in Virgo, absolutely, in the 8th house, all those planets in the 8th house, vindication is very important. And so it's kind of healing for me to see him get that.
Yeah. Well, look at the Jupiter squaring his moon in his chart. I mean, come on, it's in the 9th house. This is a skip step for him. This is not the first time this has happened. And so, even the moon in Capricorn on the South Node can be attracting, controlling women. He's got Pluto, Mars, Balsamic, and Virgo. I mean, that the nature of those aspects in his chart can reflect the kind of women he's attracted. I mean, even Saturn, the ruler of his south node, the ruler of his moon in Capricorn, is retrograde in Aquarius in the 7th, squaring his Mercury, squaring his Venus. This is a directly a signature for unresolved trauma in the past, linked with partnerships who've tried to bring him down. I think for sure there's a lot of unresolved rage that he has. You can see it in his eyes, and darkness and just grief and all of it. I mean, I was questioning myself if he was that person. I mean, with Gemini, you can have two people, and there's pictures. Put it this way, like, I know what happens when I feel an injustice has taken place. I know what happens inside of me, what I feel like I could do if somebody was, if I wasn't involved in an injustice, like that anger, that warrior comes out, in me. And I think a lot of distortions can play out in people's lives. And so I don't know that he's totally innocent. I don't know that he was this perfect person in that relationship. But, I do feel, as obviously the jury heard, that she wanted to destroy him. And you can see that with the Pluto, Mars, and Virgo balsamic in his case. So this is a culminating piece of business. And, this is coming to a head. And transiting Pluto is squaring her nodal axis right now. So if she was guilty in any way, Pluto will expose the truth of anything. For sure.
Yeah, I think what muddies that is that, he's not completely innocent. And that's likely seen by the transits that have been going on. But, the fact that he has substance abuse and alcoholism and so on. And, whenever you have two people in a conflict like that, you've got provoking and you've got reactive, right? And as soon as there's a reactive, you're no longer, kind of the victim or the innocent in it as well, too. So that's the enmeshment piece, Scorpio archetype, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we know you, Stacie, were innocent. So I know your story. And so it is brutal when you experience the Pisces part of this kind of dynamic. And I honestly feel like, that I think, we all call this in for our own reasons. So if there's darkness in him, and of course there's rage there, but for him to feel totally powerless, I'm hoping that this experience will help him be a better person when in the past he might not have been. I mean, really, that's what needs to happen for all of us. Whether you're calling this in to be stronger, to stand for yourself, to stand up for yourself, which Stacie, I know, was your part of your lessons in this, to do everything that you could to fight for it, no matter what. And in his case, I think, part of his lesson in this was to look at his own actions, to look at his own behaviors, and, what could I have done differently? Hopefully at some point, those things are going to happen within him, not just to win, but to, how can I be a better person? How can I evolve? How can I grow from this? That is ultimately what we're all here to do, So this is all very Gemini energy in terms of all over the news. Everybody's reading about it. Everybody knows their story. And so that's, perfectly fitting for this time. And here he comes up with a birthday in a few days. So, all right. Any last thoughts before we move to the transit? Deva, you never said anything. Sorry.
No,
Any thoughts? We're just bombarded.
Gemini enjoying every minute of this conversation. Okay. Yeah, no, looking at what kind of popped out to me in terms of what you guys have been sharing is that Neptune trining that North Node in Cancer in the 12th in terms of culminating lifetimes of this, perhaps this very same dynamic being played out in one way or another, and it really shifting to his emotional body. Like, not to speculate, maybe at first it was about vindication or proving he was right or whatnot, and then through this experience, it's like the potential of bringing this to culmination and bringing up the emotion underneath. Seeing that North Node in Cancer in the 12th in terms of what you were sharing, Kristin, that, this isn't about the money, this isn't about proving myself to be right. It's about really bringing this to a head, or really bringing this to a closure, so that potentially I can grow in all those ways, and I can resolve this through through the emotion of forgiveness, rather than being that reactionary person, and bringing that whole really intense theme to a close that way, in terms of just bringing out to light what was true and what was not. And that 6th house energy of perfection, how can I improve? And with that Capricorn energy, moon on the south node, and moon being the ruler of the north node, how can this not happen again? I'm sure after this there will be a not wanting to recircuit, or wanting this to be a closed energy rather than something that could repeat. So bringing up rather the emotions underneath, where at first it might have been for this or for that.
I think
And
one of the most, sorry, David, one of the most important teachings in EA is this, that we all have to take responsibility for what we set in motion. And that's his moon in Capricorn on the south node. I mean, I'm hoping he doesn't totally make himself out to be a victim of the whole thing. He's going to have to be able to say, this is my part. This is what I take responsibility for, or it will continue to happen. That's what we all have to do. How do we change the groove in the record? And so I don't know that, because I don't know him. But I'm hoping, for his soul's sake and for hers, frankly, whatever it is that she's here to resolve, that can happen. But this is some really incredible EA happening. And so wanted to bring that up today. Let's move.
And I just wanted to say this is total speculation on my behalf, but it's like, I got my life back and all that, and he's vindicated, and he feels like, good, justice has been served. And it could stop right there. But it depends on, what takes place next, whether he gets pulled back into the enmeshment and the soul enmeshment and the drama thing, depending on, my thought is that, okay, she doesn't have the money and whatever, he's not going to chase it down, but it could keep going. Like it has the potential to stop right here, but it's still precarious. It's still sitting there and next is choice makings, right? And we still have Neptune squaring the nodes, just in Neptune being squared by transits, I meant to say, that are, putting everything into the uncertainty category of, potentials and choice makings.
I think, since he has 3 passes of the Saturn return, it won't complete itself till January of next year. January, February. It could take, we're going to see more. This isn't the end of it. I think you're right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of newsworthy things, we've got a transit of the month, full moon, June 14th. Does anyone know whose birthday that is? I think it's hysterical, because this is Flag Day in the United States. And a certain someone who used to be president has this.
Oh, is that Trump's birthday?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Not being American. I don't pay.
I know, but I find it ironic, really, that he's born on Flag Day. But anyway, so the next 2 weeks, we have the proceedings for the January 6th insurrection happening, and a lot's going to be coming out of the woodwork. A lot's going to be, a lot of people are saying that it's going to blow the roof off this thing. There's so much that we as the public do not know. 3 major stations will be airing this in the next 2 weeks, like daily, except for, of course, the right-wing station will not be airing it, because, they're going to just be, showing Trump all day, I think 24/7, because he can't be wrong. He can't be guilty. But sorry, I'm just showing my true colors on the subject. But anyway, let's talk about this full moon, Rose, because it is squaring Neptune. And I think we're going to learn a lot about what happened on that day that we didn't know.
Well, and yes, and I have to also mention as well, too, that this full moon is also a super moon. So it's punched up a little bit more. So, super moons are just a little bit more intense. And certainly we see the square to Neptune, and both the sun and moon have not perfected the square to that yet. So there's still something on brew. So when Neptune, as you just said a moment ago, Kristin, when Neptune is being emphasized here, by a full moon is an illuminating archetype here. It's going to bring something to the surface of awareness. It's exposing or revealing something you don't know about, and here it is, right? So that's kind of all in the works with this, something that you overlooked or something. It's a potential that's on brew that has not yet made its full light of day. And also with this, you just reminded me with the Flag Day and all that stuff, Mars is conjunct Chiron. And there's all the talk about gun control and the mass murders that have gone on in the States, and all the controversy here in Canada. Our government just passed a law legislating, handguns and so forth. So, that issue is still front and center. Again, there's a trigger point there with that influence. But that Mars and Chiron conjunction, that is a suggestion of something that that triggers fast. Something that can come at us kind of hard and fast, right? Something along that late nature. So on a personal note, and on this date as well too, Mercury has just moved into Gemini. And of course the sun is still in Gemini. So we've got some new information perhaps coming in, something being revealed or something being exposed. Venus, the ruler of the North Node, has surpassed Uranus by a couple of days. So I would suggest that just prior to the eclipse or to the full moon and afterwards, it's a work in progress in terms of what's happening for you personally. I might suggest that that something opens up, or that you come up with some awareness or some truth or some answer or some revelation. And I would suggest it is something to take the ball and run with. Wouldn't you agree, Kristin?
Oh yeah. So whatever's revealed is like,
yeah,
here, now what? Now what are you going to do? I mean, especially with Jupiter and Mars both in Aries, and it's hopefully going to give you the courage to move forward fast. The Uranus Venus conjunction, new phase. Wow.
Yeah. I think also too, because I've been watching, the 23 to 25 degrees of the mutable signs. And the reason I've been watching that is because later on in the year, Mars will go into Gemini, and it's going to retrograde about 25 degrees. So I think because of the Jupiter transit this year, earlier in the year, Jupiter, Neptune, and so forth, I think that the 25 to 23 degrees is what I call a sensitive point. So whatever this triggers, and this now what next, or take the ball and run with it, or so on, I think this might be, kind of a trigger for something that might be something that you are processing or developing or working on for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you, what is so crazy? Trump was born on a full moon.
On an eclipse?
Yeah. And so his moon is 23 Sag.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a massive. And it triggers the eclipse into.
Yeah.
Talking about.
Yeah, so this is a more important full moon. It's a more punched up full moon, and it's got a lot of potential here. So you've got a lot of potential when you've got Gemini Sag. It's about exploring various options and about traveling down a different road, perhaps, right? So you could be on a switch track here, and that switch track might be wonderful for you. Mars is still moving towards squaring the Pluto position. It's on a move along. So look at opportunities that you might not have explored previously. Sagittarius is an archetype of the future, right? So it's giving you some maybe some hints or clues about what could be coming down the pipe next for you. And so you might get some previews or some preliminary information, and not to discount that. We often do that with Neptune. It's like, oh, I had this fleeting thought. Well, yeah, I'll shelve it for later. Maybe not do that. Maybe take a look at it and see, is that a relevant message here? Maybe I should put that a little more front and center to see what that shifts, right?
Yeah, that 0 degree Gemini, Mercury is 0 degree Gemini. Something's just coming in, some new information. It's just giving you options, giving you 2 options. And like we spoke about in our transit show, Rose, the thing that kind of makes me relax around this, for clients I'm talking to, or, just looking at the day in general, is that Saturn in Aquarius, it is retrograde now, trining the sun, right? So the information is helping secure the future potentially for you, or helping you to see something more clearly for yourself. The retrograde gives you the space, right? The distance between yourself and what's in front of you, and that anchoring trine to the sun and a sextile to the full moon, I think will help balance you through this objective look at something.
Right. And so this is really can be introductory. So you might not take that information in, but maybe you don't bank on that first idea, that first thought. It has to develop, right? There's more pieces of the puzzle to come into play.
Exactly. And you know what? I remember too, in discussing the eclipse, we've been discussing both eclipses in the past month. In April, we were talking about the new moon eclipse in Taurus. And in May, we were talking about the total lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And you were talking about the fact that things are still going to be playing out until the middle of June. You kept saying that over and over. And here we are.
And here we are, right? Yeah. And we're still the uncertainty, right? Yeah. So watch this. Something may burst onto the scene for you, and be prepared for it, and look around for added options or more things to add to it. And
when will Mercury be out of its shadow?
By the 18th of June.
Okay, by the 18th. All right, any of you other ladies want to comment before we get into our fingerprint? No?
I think Sue just gave us something here. What did she say? That December 14, that eclipse is the U.S. Electoral College vote, and hearings are coming up on denying the election. Well, there's a lot going on, of course, Gemini and Sagittarius and so forth rule politics, right? The opinions of the day, right? Opinions are shifting, are they not? Yeah.
All right, Rob, did you want to say something?
I'm just looking at the chart and going, wow, it's going to personally hit me. And I'm listening to all you ladies and I'm going, okay, what is this going to bring? No, it feels powerful.
Yeah, I know. I think, Rose kind of walked me off the ledge the last time I think that whenever I see Neptune like squaring a super full moon, it's just always like, it's true that as astrologers, we can't see every little detail, right? This is our own journey too, and there's things that are being revealed to us, and it's just the mystery of life. We have to just allow things to unfold as they are intended, and in some cases karmically is supposed to, and that can swing in a good direction as well.
Yeah. And let me also just say, I want to use the word domino, Gemini, domino. It's the domino effect, right? It is a full moon in Sagittarius, but relative to the Neptune position, it's at a disseminating almost last quarter, right? And so that is indicating a restructuring of some kind, right? So where the action is with that sun, with that Mercury moving into Gemini, it's domino effect. I already have a hint of what that's going to do for me. And last week, I was kind of sitting there very loose ended, and all of a sudden I got a whiff of, of what it was going to be. And now I have to readjust all of my thinking to be able to get ready for that particular thing that I know is on the table for me next, so yeah.
I think I know.
I already feeling it. Yeah.
I have a suspicion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just add one thing?
Please.
With this, you know, third house Gemini, ninth house moon, or, you know, sun in Gemini, moon in Sag, squaring Neptune. This obviously correlates to the issue of misinformation and how the collective is so divided, so oppositional, and it's so close that you almost can't even tell who's going to win. It's, you know, and so there, you know, this is really going to energize the revealing of things that are hidden, things that are, or people, you know, really looking outside of themselves to consider another person's point of view. And I mean, the way that I see it, what's going on in the United States in our politics, I mean, this may sound hyperbolic, but to me, it is the essence of the mythical war in heaven, you know, when Lucifer and Christ were battling for, not battling, but whatever. I was raised in the Mormon religion, where it said that, you know, the whole host of heaven went to war, and there were two people. There was Christ, there was Satan. They both had plans. Satan wanted to control everyone. Christ wanted to give people free choice. And the people who chose Satan didn't get bodies. That's kind of what they teach us. And it really, it's remarkable to me, because what I see happening in the world today is exactly what a lot of these religious people talk about, and thinking that they're just automatically on the right side, without taking a look at their own beliefs, opinions, without asking the deeper questions within themselves. And I feel like that's something that as a collective, we absolutely need to do. We need to stop just listening to opinions. We need to think about what our natural moral standards are, you know, like natural morality, Wolf used to teach. It's about natural values. And that's going to be critical. And I feel like it's just all on the line, and it's, you know, 51-49%, Jeffrey used to say. That's the balance of evil and God. And I think we are there and in the thick of it, and it is active, and that's what we're seeing. So yeah, that's.
I mean, look at what's happening even in India. It's everywhere. I forget the guy who's in charge there, but you know, if you're not Hindu, they're persecuting Christians, Muslims. I mean, that's not what Jesus taught. That's what I'm not saying. You know, I'm just taking, you know, a predominant belief system. You know, we're all created equal, right? And so even living in a country like India, and the head of the country is claiming to be a man of God and persecuting other people that are not of that faith. I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. And so it's not just in one person's country, it's everywhere. It's happening everywhere. Certainly there are countries I think I'd rather live in at this point that aren't doing that. But anyway, so here we are. And I think it's important that of course, everyone is allowed that free choice, or allowed to believe what they want to believe. But it is, I think, in the next 2 weeks, in this one example of it, there'll be evidence that's going to be shared, and people will have an opportunity to either believe it or not. And when you hear something that goes against your beliefs, so often it threatens someone's sense of security. So what does that mean about me? And they just can't even go there. Oftentimes, it's just turn it off, shut the door. It takes a lot of courage to actually look at your choices and at your life with, you know, impeccable honesty, with lidless eyes. It is hard to do, especially if you're going to feel the bottom beneath you go out. So I think this is a very powerful month. Teaching moment. It's a teaching moment that day. So, and beyond. All right, you guys, thank you for all that. Let's move on to our fingerprint.
Yeah, let's bring some humor into our lives.
Oh dear.
Our fingerprint. Yeah, so we've chosen Jim Carrey this month. Just a little background, because there is quite a lot in terms of his life, because he's been in the show business, 45 plus years. So we know he's a Canadian American actor, or author, comedian, philanthropist. He's been around, like I said, 40 plus years, starting off as a comedian in Canada from a young age, apparently. From what I researched, I found out that he said in an interview back in 2009 that the reason he got into sort of impressions in comedy was out of desperation, and that's his word, desperation. And it was because he wanted to cheer his mother up. Apparently his mom was quite ill when he was young, and he just wanted to make her happy and bring some joy into her life. So he started to practice impressions in front of the mirror, and he found that he was very good at it and brought joy to his mom. And he then decided that he wanted to pursue that in terms of a career. But we also know that he experienced a difficult childhood in terms of his family were made homeless in his early years to his mid-teens, I believe it was, where his father was originally a musician and had to take a job as an accountant at, I believe it was a tire factory just outside of Ontario in Canada, where his brother and himself had to actually work at the factory as well. It was in exchange for living in the house opposite the factory. If they worked as janitors and security guards after school, they could live in that house for free. So they did that for a number of years. And Jim Carrey ended up leaving school at around 15, 16. He dropped out of school because I guess the urgency was to make money and to survive. And so he ended up doing a lot of comedy shows around Ontario was where he lived. And it was, I believe, in 1981 that he was, there was an article in the Toronto Star where he was praised for his comedy, his ability to be on stage and the performances he gave. And that Rose might be able to confirm this, that he ended up being quite famous in his teens in Canada. And it was only in around about 1983 he decided that he wanted to go to Hollywood. But it took a while for Hollywood to kind of recognize his talent, though he was doing comedy shows and it was on TV appearances, etc. It was in the 90s when he signed the movie Ace Ventura. That became a super hit. So that was what brought him international recognition and international fame. And I believe it was around, he was 32, so his Saturn return, end of his Saturn return, where that recognition came in, and he ended up signing the sequels to Ace Ventura. I believe The Mask had already been signed, but that was an even a bigger hit than Ace Ventura. And he became the first actor actually to receive $20 million a signing fee for the cable guy. And I actually thought it would have been somebody else, but I found out that it was actually, he was the first actor to be given that. And so most of his movies have been very successful in his comedy movies, etc. He's also been given recognition as an actor in terms of, I believe it was 6 nominations of the Golden Globes, and he's won 2 of them, and one of them was for The Truman Show. A great film. It's one of my favorite films that I've seen of his. And in the UK, there's the BAFTA Film Awards, which is quite prestigious. He was given a nomination for The Eternal, I always forget the name of this movie, The Eternal Spotless Mind, is that correct?
Oh, is it Eternal Sunshine?
That's it. This is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, yes, with Kate Winslet. Yeah, so he was nominated in the UK for that for Best Actor. And for somebody that started off as a comedian to be recognized by critics for his acting performance, he did well there. He's actually also become an author. I don't know if you're aware, but he wrote a children's book called How Roland Rolls. I believe it was in 2013, and it was a children's book about overcoming depression and anxiety. And it was sort of like a metaphysical book that he wrote with a bit of comedy for kids to look into. And then he's also released his memoir. I believe it was in 2020. He released a memoir called Memoirs and Misinformation, and it was that novel. Well, I'll say novel. It was a memoir. Has received critical acclaim as well. And most recently, in April 2022, he has announced that he's going to be retiring from filmmaking. And he actually, this is, and I quote what he said that if the angels bring some sort of script that's written in gold ink that says to me that it's going to be really important for people to see, I might continue down the road, but I'm taking a break. I am enough, I've got enough, and I've done enough. So it's interesting that he's hit, I believe it's his second Saturn return, and he's decided to take a break, and he wants to lead in his word is a spiritual life. He wants to connect to a higher source, because he said in an interview as well that he does transcendental meditation, and that was a result of him having experienced depression for quite a number of years, from his childhood through his acting career as well. Even being a successful actor, he's had those moments where he just didn't feel, in his words, where he didn't feel like he wanted to do anything. So he's taken medication for his depression as well. But he said that what saved him was his transcendental meditation, being able to step back and see there's a purpose behind everything. And all he had to do was kind of slow himself down and slow his thinking mind down as well. And now he says that his goal is also the center of his universe is understanding his connection with Buddha and Krishna and all those guys.
I love that. All those
So,
guys.
yeah, and all those guys. So he's reached a point now in his life where he seems to want to do, it's sort of like he wants to do more for himself. Like he's been of service. He's brought joy to other people's lives. It's about finding joy for himself. And if we look at his chart, it's for me, I can clearly see that kind of signature. But yeah, so we've got, like, for example, Pluto retrograde in the 10th house in Virgo, service oriented. And then you've also got like Neptune and Scorpio 12th house squaring the nodes, which we will explain through now. But David, do you want to take the first archetype of Pluto?
Oh, yeah, and that being shared and exactly dovetailing what you're saying, that him being in the third stage individuated, which I think we're all comfortable with in terms of where he's at, is a deep reflection with Pluto being in the 10th house retrograde on what will make him feel worthy, or that he's of being of service, or when that's become a place of futility, or when it's become a place of emotional repression, rather than accessing his own emotional body, nor polarity point being in Pisces in the 4th, and bringing joy into his own life, versus also seeing the South Node being in Aquarius, with Jupiter and Mercury there. It's almost like wanting to bring joy to others out of a compensation for his own depression, or like making other people happy would be a way to then, with the Aquarius energy, step back and kind of work on himself, or give joy to himself through that interaction of bringing humor to others, which is for me fantastic. You have to do that to keep going. If you don't find humor, where can you go? And really shifting to that North Node in Leo in the 9th of self-empowerment, of acting upon his own truth, his own principles, and being the Pluto's polarity point in Pisces in the 4th to bring that dynamic of perhaps overworking or being overly responsible. It sounds like he had a lot of responsibility early age, which you can see in various parts in his chart, starting with Pluto and Capricorn, taking care of his family, taking a job so they could all survive, and bringing that point to completion so he can feel, I've done enough, I've given enough, and I'm stepping into a place to where it's also about actualizing who I am, or recovering my truth, and I'm feeling complete from within myself, rather than having to have that come from something that I necessarily give to others, or something that I not necessarily do that through others, if that makes sense. Like bringing joy to a sick mom, or having to fend for the family, which can feel good. It feels like you're providing, seeing that Mars in the 2nd, that you're worthwhile. and really more stepping into a role of bringing that internally, seeing the shift from the Pisces to, or the shift from Virgo in the 10th to Pisces in the 4th mainly. And seeing that Neptune square very quickly, it makes me think of, for me, one of the most, for me, I can really relate to this in my own way, but it's that moment of Truman when he finds out that everything in his world has essentially been staged. His wife, his best friend since college, everything, Neptune in the 12th squaring the nodes, and he gives one look and he goes, has any of this been real? And the way that he's able to, you can really feel that shift into, oh my gosh, it's like that Pisces in the 4th and that 12th house, like what's real, what's not, what meaning does this really have? And in terms of his own growth. And for me, that was, as an actor, I really found that to be one of his most powerful moments on film.
Diana, come.
Yeah, no. Sorry, Stacie.
Yeah, so Eva mentioned the issue of emotional repression, which we can see here in the chart. And I mean, one of my personal observations about Jim Carrey is that, which correlates to the Mars in Capricorn in the 2nd, where he's holding in all of this energy. And then there's packed 3rd house with all of that Aquarius. And, you've got Venus and the Sun in Capricorn, where he just part of his nature is he just, like he just uses his body, and he has so much energy that he is expelling. It's just so intense. And I feel like that is kind of a means for him to loosen up the stagnant emotional arrest, to get it moving and to just get it out. And so I just thought that was an interesting point.
And
No,
one
I
quote I'd
totally
like to
agree.
share. I'm sorry.
No,
In terms
I was
of
just gonna,
go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna add on to what Stacie just said in terms of his Mars in Capricorn. He actually said in an interview that when he worked as a janitor, he had so much anger within him. He used to carry a baseball bat while his duties, because he just wanted to hit somebody, or not somebody, sorry. He wanted to hit something just to get that anger out. But he had the baseball bat there, knowing that he could do it, but he never did. So there's that kind of Capricorn control, the Mars having the anger. And it's just like if something had triggered it. And like you said, him on screen, for me, finding out he had suffered depression was like, oh, wow. Because objectively, you would never think that, because you're just like, oh, on screen, he seems very, just he's just out there. He's just expressing himself. And like you said, he's just like this. And I think of The Mask, the movie The Mask, and I think of the 2 characters he portrays. There's a truth in both those characters in terms of who he is as an individual. So yeah, just agreeing with your point there, Stacie. Sorry, Deva, you were going to give us a quote.
Yeah, to dovetail off what both you are saying too, in terms of the emotional repression and the buildup of anger, and then this Gemini kind of two realities. And kind of from my perspective, how he's dealing with that, or kind of where he's growing to, is a beautiful quote that to me is really reflects that natal Pluto in specific, Pluto in Virgo retrograde in the 10th. You can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on what you love.
Say it again.
He says, you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Oh, I love that.
And in terms of what you guys are sharing, and how he's able to articulate seeing that stellium in the 3rd.
Didn't Robin Williams have a lot of depression too, and that it's like the same dynamic oftentimes. Yes. I mean, one of the funniest women soul personally that I've known in this lifetime. I mean, every time I'm ever around her, I laugh till I cry, and she admits that it's just a distraction for all of her pain. So she doesn't want to talk about it. So she just, makes everything about a joke or everything funny. And she's absolutely hilarious. But inside, I mean, she also suffers from depression. So it's a common thing, you know, it's the Gemini archetype can be about running from something or being a distraction from something. Although the way he used his humor was so sincere with, you know, wanting to make his mom happy, he didn't want to see her suffer. He was trying to distract from that pain as a young boy.
Who was the comedian?
Oh, I was talking about Robin Williams.
Oh, you were talking about a female though.
Oh, a friend of mine.
Oh, a friend of yours.
Funniest
Oh,
woman I've ever known in this
yeah,
life
yeah.
personally. I mean, literally, there's never been a time when I was around her that I haven't laughed, you know, till I cried. I mean, she's no longer on this earth, unfortunately, died too young, but seriously, the funniest human being I've ever known. So and did that for the same reason, to distract, to not want to have to confront or have anyone ask her what's wrong.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of comedians do that. They cover up their own pain, right? You know, through that. Yeah. That stellium in the third house and depression is a Capricorn archetype, and feeling the pressure to perform, you know, taking on responsibility at an early age. The third house actually represents the teen years and all of that, and whatever it is that is repressed becomes distorted. You know, his anger and his drive, you know, seen in all of that. Aquarius can be very, you know, all over the map, or, you know, acting out in quite wild ways. Looking at the moon in Gemini in the seventh house, the idea of wearing masks and so forth, it comes through a Taurus house cusp as well too, relative to the Venus in Capricorn conjunct the Sun. You know, projected expectations are seventh house Venus archetype, and it's externalized. And so that is, you know, performing, I think, as maybe the public or others would relate best or expect out of you, and so forth, you know. So Gemini is the eternal youth as well too, and I think that he conveys that in a lot of the humor and roles that he plays and so forth, and even in his art that he does, which is what I call pop art. You know, it's cartoons or so on. It's got political message behind it, but it's very juvenile. I'll even say a lot of his humor is juvenile, and that would be that Gemini archetype as well too. The Leo in the ninth house and midheaven and so on, to go into entertainment and keeping that upbeat is, you know, is a way for that pain. A few things I want to say about this. I just watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind a couple of nights ago, and it was very interesting in terms of I invite anyone who would like to look at Jim Carrey in any depth and examine that third house of his, Mercury and Jupiter together in Aquarius, the South Node in Aquarius. And it's very interesting. Those are planetary pairs, Jupiter and Mercury, new phase. Jupiter and Saturn, new phase, you know, and even Venus and Mars in Capricorn are also new phase planetary pairs. It's really, really interesting. But what I was thinking about in terms of that movie was that the role that he played was, you know, was the Capricorn end. He was this kind of repressed guy, right? You know, and Kate Winslet played the projected form of everything that that he would have liked to, you know, all the Aquarius, the kind of radical, impulsive, you know, wild, you know, her hair and everything. And if you watch that movie, thinking of that, the two sides of Jim Carrey, or the two sides of that character, really, really made sense to me at that level. Very interesting to watch it thinking about it that way. And Aquarius is also an archetype. Well, of course, it's trauma. So it's how that trauma gets out. I think that Pluto in Virgo in the 10th house, again, the idea of the crises of trying to trying to control what was going on for his parents. And, he said at one point here, I remember locking myself in the bathroom and crying because I thought they were going to die. And, the responsibility that a child takes on, Leo on the midheaven. And I think that the Venus in Capricorn, balsamic to that sun, there's this imprinting of, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't, it's all of that kind of thing. And I think that is, in terms of that Taurus piece, is watching a clip where he was on stage, and what is my opinion of watching that, like he was accepting these awards, and he came to this one award and he did what was expected of him. And then the next time he went to the same award, he did what was expected of him. And I think there's a lot of that, when the public is so demanding. We want to see the funny Jim Carrey. We want to see you be silly. We want to see you be crazy. That's where we love you. It's all of that. And I think that he is in the acceleration piece, he's kind of moved through the paces of meeting that kind of demand. And I do want to read a couple of quotes here. Where is it here? Really profound with that Neptune square the nodes. His mom was addicted to painkillers and so forth. And he's had his own drug things, and that square the nodes as well too. He had a girlfriend who committed suicide, and he was initially sued by the family for blamed for it, which he was absolved from and so forth. But he's had pain and pain again. But just that Neptune square the nodes here, I want. When did the transition happen? Somewhere between absolute confusion, disappointment, and absolute disillusionment came the fruition of all my dreams. And that's very interesting. And another point to make is, in terms of Uranus in Leo, and it's retrograde in the 10th house, and the North Node in Leo in the 9th house, and the midheaven in Leo, and so forth. And he said this on many times, many interviews, is that when he went to California, he went to the top of Mulholland Drive, which is, Beverly Hills, and he wrote himself a check for $10 million. This is a thing. And he affirmed that, and there was like no way that, and he said that it was crumbling in his wallet and so on. And 5 years later, he made it, right? It's the powers of positive thinking and so on and so forth, right? So I think that he has moved. Sorry, I just want to see if I can find the other quotes there. Getting to, this quote about Capricorn as well too. What is the pearl that the dirt is built around? And the pearl is the personality that you build around yourself as a protection against that thought. If they ever find out that I'm worthless, that I'm not enough, I will be destroyed. What a quote, what a quote to make, right? And now he's come to that point, as Rab was saying, I am enough. I have enough. I've done enough. I am enough, right? And getting to that point now where he no longer needs to be the performer. He's delivering messages in his pop art, but now he feels no longer necessary to do that, right? And there's something here about, he started now, instead of doing political commentary through his art, he has stopped doing that. And he says he doesn't have a message to deliver anymore. And he said now he is onto mangoes. And the mangoes are the fruits of God. They represent abundance and sweetness and the gifts of the universe. So that's where I'm at.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
I think it's so important, something that you said, Rose. I think it just a minute ago. Anyone with a Scorpio rising, there's so much more than meets the eye. He comes out on stage like you think you know everything about him because he is out there in every way, but there's so much more than meets the eye.
Yeah, and I think that, that Aquarius is like, he's got to get that energy out, and he doesn't want to be controlled anymore. He doesn't want to be limited anymore, and he's got to get that out. And, with the Eternal Sunshine movie, it's really this statement in terms of, wanting to bypass and erase all the pain, and in this movie, the actors really struggle to remember all those good moments, all that love and everything, but you have to you have to trudge through the pain before you get to that, back to that love, back to that, and I think it's a total statement for his chart. Is like, I can't believe he didn't write the whole thing himself.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Just from final comments, just to carry on from Rose said, if you look at his Neptune squaring the nodes in Scorpio in the 12th house, in a way, his soul journey was always linked to movies, with Neptune ruling films and TV and etc. In the 10th house being Leo, his creativity was always going to come through filmmaking. And even the 12th house symbolizing, just that oneness and spirituality and trying to understand your own place in the world. I know we've done a lot of Jim Carrey quotes, but this is one of my favorites that he said was about his life. Whatever, I just want to be myself. And if I lose a few fringe people who can't go with the fact that there's other forces in the world, that's okay with me. He's finally reached a place where he just wants to understand his own journey, who he is. And it's like he's putting himself first now for the first time in his life. Yeah.
It's an acceleration, moving through many different catalogs of the soul.
Yeah. Pluto has been conjunct his sun in the last year. So not just a Saturn return, he's got the, Saturn, which rules the sun, receiving a conjunction to Pluto. So that can be an end of an evolution, a rapid evolution, just eliminating all the things that don't serve him anymore.
Yes.
It's like slipping out of old clothing and the facade and all these pretenses or other characters. He just wants to be himself. He doesn't want to be 25 different people anymore.
Exactly.
Like this holistic North Node in the ninth, taking Gemini, this diversity of so many lives and so many people and so many things in his head, and just becoming that wholeness, that holiness. That when I say wholeness, I'm thinking of that holistic person versus the fragmented, pieces of the past.
Yeah, it's like finally following his natural truth.
Yeah.
This is who I am. This is who I want to be. Let's go.
It's a fascinating chart to study. Fascinating.
Very inspirational.
Yeah.
I was happy. I did not know any of that before we prepared on this. So this is great. Okay. Thank you, Rob, for the research and everything else, and for all of the pearls from all of the rest of you. And now we have an interview to give to in our expanding the EA circle. We'll call her a new star in this work because she's doing some great things. So Stacie, let's talk to Jordan.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Jordan. How you doing?
Good. I'm enjoying this. I love it.
That's so great. Yeah, it's really amazing to have you. We are always very excited when somebody just really grasps the purpose of EA and the essence of EA and dives head in. And you're one of those people. And so we want to hear your story and learn about you. And so the first thing I'm going to ask you is, I know that you were practicing astrology for X amount of time in Oklahoma, of all places, the Bible Belt.
Yes.
How was that?
So I did it in hiding. Like, if you were to look at my chart, I think that very much shows. And so I had like a lot of fear doing that at first, just because of, like it's a very consensus place. So, and I'm definitely have felt odd man out a little bit. So, I had to, I feel like, kind of step into my power. I had to be like a bunny rabbit coaxed out a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yes, of course it does. Well, and let me ask you this, like, when and how did you become aware of EA, and what drew you to it?
Okay, so I had been studying astrology, doing it kind of on and off in secret and hiding. And then my Saturn return came. And at first it was my nodal opposition, and I had my second child, and I was very much like,
I wanted to follow my purpose. I remember that was something that I kept saying to myself, like, what's my purpose? And so I remember holding my son and just being like, well, what did you like as a kid? Like, because I kind of felt like my life was falling apart a little bit, to be honest. And so I got back to doing the things that I liked as a kid because I figured, you know, that that wouldn't have changed, like that was still in me. And so I started going back into nature and doing like nature walks, sitting out in my backyard. I started meditating a lot. And I started playing with the same things that I played with whenever I was little. And I kept searching for like different things with astrology, and I felt like I would see things in charts, but that wasn't really what I felt like I was seeing whenever I would like get a book. And so in 2019 I was going to go to a conference actually, and COVID hit at the beginning of 2020, and I received all of these videos, and I saw Ari on one of them, and he talked about EA, and I remember I wrote down EA, and I like went and I got the Pluto book. I had to special order it because like no one here had it. And yeah, and I bought it, and I just was like, everything kind of made sense to me. I was like, this is totally like, it just felt true. That's, I mean, if I could make it shinier, but if we're gonna just put it really, if I'm gonna generalize it, it just felt really true to me. And I became obsessed with it. It's kind of, I was talking to you ladies, it was like a rabbit hole I don't think I'll ever get out of.
Well, I mean, your eighth house is packed in your natal chart, you know. So you've got Uranus there, evolutionary astrology, Venus. I mean, all of this is like, there is a total necessity to ask the question why, and to get the deeper, real significance of things rather than these consensus outside appearances. And so, like, hats off to you for being, because I'm in Utah, right? So
Very simple.
I feel you. You know, there's some traditional people who just don't really understand the significance of astrology or the opportunity within it. And so, yeah, I understand the hiding part as well. And so now that you've found EA, like, what do you see kind of blossoming out of this? What's your focus?
Okay, so I never ever in my wildest dreams would think that I would become someone who would do the astrology of my state. But whenever I first started putting myself out there, I was sitting up one night actually studying EA, and I was like, I have to put myself out here. Like, I feel like this responsibility here, oddly enough. And so, because I was asking myself, like, okay, like, why did I pick to live here? What is going on? And so I picked up, I opened up Oklahoma's chart. I saw my Saturn was on the ascendant, just kind of all of these things. And I was like, and I have a multicultural family. My husband is Black. My children are biracial. I have a non-binary child. So I live in the gayborhood in Oklahoma City. Like, I'm very much like, I don't know, probably my Aquarius on my MC or something, you know, but I wanted to connect with people. So it was more about like, if I'm going to do this, like, how's a way that how I can. And it just kind of, it was very much those kind of seeding thoughts that Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about that come in. And I was like, and that felt true. It was like, when you know something feels true, like, you quit searching in that avenue, right? You know, and so I started putting together this class for Oklahoma, and I'm someone who latched on to Jeffrey's like teachings about sadomasochism. I talk about this so much in this Oklahoma class because our Pluto in Oklahoma is Gemini Pluto in the 6th house. We have a moon in the 3rd house. That's Aries, squares the nodes. And I mean, it resonated, and I was like, I have to teach this. And then learning the history, I know about the indigenous culture here, but many people don't know about the slaves that were brought here actually by the indigenous tribes after being colonized. And so I like to really teach about the crisis that we have, because we don't really have an identity. It was based on manifest destiny, like most of the United States. And I really feel like Oklahoma is a place that could help have a huge ripple effect in America. We kind of first start with McGirt versus Oklahoma and the ruling with that. But I feel like there is a responsibility to tell the truth of what's going on here. And I feel like EA is a great way to do that. So I hope that answered your question.
Oh yeah, that's just very clear. I mean, one of the things that what you're describing, it just brings me back to one of the things that Jeffrey Wolfgreen wrote in one of his books, Pluto, or where he said, I would much rather reach one person in the outback who is actually listening than become like world famous. And for me, the fact that you are in this this environment with this mindset, that's kind of what you're doing. You're putting yourself in a place where that thinking isn't established yet, but you're here for it. And I mean, when I found Wolf, it was the same thing. It's like, it just made so much sense. And it's like, finally, someone's like speaking the truth, like telling it how it is. And like, it all makes sense, and it aligns with my values. And so I absolutely want to be a part of this, and I want to spread it as well. And, so good for you, because how many people in Oklahoma are embracing the ideas of Jeffrey Wolfgreen and the...
No, not. Like, I don't any until I started teaching. And then, like, of course, I couldn't stop talking about him. Like,
Yes,
yeah, book.
I hear you on that. Yeah. And so you're just this beautiful example of liberation. Again, there's that Aquarius, or that Uranus in the 8th house in Capricorn with Saturn and Neptune. And you've got your sun right there in the 9th. You're just like, you are here to be like a living example of something that is outside of control, where there is individuality, where there is truth, where you are offering yourself and being there for people. And it is so important to offer a voice, especially in a place where there aren't many voices that are speaking about these kinds of things. And so, like, hats off to you. So yeah. So what are your plans? Like, what's your future plans? What do you see happening here? Like, what do you
Well, right now I'm feel really just guided by the community. So I was teaching classes out on some land after integration for people. Learned a lot about that. And I do a lot of, one-on-one with people. It's kind of, I've been getting more clients in Oklahoma since I started practicing here. Honestly, it shocked me. I was doing the Virgo thing and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And then I finally did it, and it was like, oh, okay. And so I found to answer your question, I don't know. It's like I'm more or less kind of being guided by, like whatever my community is asking of me. So people have been wanting me to teach about archetypes. So I'm about to teach about archetypes. So it's not anything that I ever thought that I would teach about necessarily, but I get to do the fun stuff of, I love consulting. I love mental health. I love the underdog. I love championing for them. I love letting them know that we're not really as isolated as we often feel that we are, And so I think whenever I teach, it gives me an opportunity to be able to kind of work one-on-one with other people because they hear something that resonates, or, just on a soul level, there's something that resonates. And so then I get to work with them, and it just is oh, it's such a passion. I nerd out on this all the time. Like, that's the only way to say it. Like, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really amazing, because what I hear in all of your words and as you're describing your personal reality, I just hear the fundamental intention that Jeffrey Wolf Green had, which is like the whole basis of this, of EA, is to really just validate to somebody who they are and to give them the tools to objectify things that are happening in their lives. And I hear you taking that on in a place that, you know,
Yes.
they're just being your natural self and just allowing yourself to be an example to others is going to plant the seed, as you were saying, talking about. And so kudos. So I want to open this up to the rest of the panel here.
Well, I know, yeah, I brought, I don't know if you can hear me. I brought Jordan in because I've had the great fortune of being able to connect with her and talk about what she's doing. And I'm just, again, you said right in the Bible Belt, there she is, helping to decondition people. And, you know, to go in and work with this theme of sadomasochism, that 6/12th house, the underdog. I mean, right in the middle of America, I had to bring her on. I just celebrate you, Jordan. And I want you to feel a part of our community, and anyone else out there who's loving this work, you know, we want to hear about it too. But we all need to feel more a part of something. And when you're dialed into something like this kind of work where you're truly helping to raise the vibration of this planet, you know, it's meaning right there. This work provides so much personal meaning because you know that you are shining a light forward for somebody else. And so thank you for your service and just for being a part of this.
Thank you. I appreciate the work very much. Seriously.
All right. So thank you for that, Stacie. Love it. Love your exchange there. We're gonna move to our next segment. Deva, go ahead and give us the movie of the month.
Yeah, I thought a good movie for the month for Gemini would be Spotlight. And that is a movie about a cover-up of sexual molestation of younger children that was happening in churches and or by priests. And the people in the Boston Globe, they'd been piecing together, to me, this is coming out of the retrograde, they'd been piecing the story together for years. They'd gotten one information or one piece of it, and then it would get buried in the newspapers because they didn't have enough to really bring it together or to show the scope of it, to show the whole or the dimension or the breadth of how big of a problem it was. And it was the process of going through and seeing how there was an active cover-up of how these different priests had been they'd been exposed, or it had been known that they'd been abusing children, and then they would either take them off from their parish and then reinstate them after either saying leave or even in another location, because they really didn't want this to come to light. And it was amazing because how it comes together is by getting the right sources, by communicating it in exactly the right way so that it couldn't be covered up through like an individual story. They were able to bring to light the full scope of the problem. And it was about their struggle of, oh, you know, we got this piece, but we can't because of how that might then be buried, or how that, you know, how that information could then be covered up within itself, just because we only have a part, we don't have the whole. Thought about that as the Gemini Sag. And with Mercury retrograde, how having that one piece of information that wasn't known before can make the biggest difference. And so once they were able to get to show the pattern of how many priests had been being reinstated, or how that was covered up for many years, they were then able to go public.
This is a true story, based on a true story.
Yes,
Yeah.
based on a true story. So I found that to be very Gemini, and the power of information in terms of you have to have the right pieces.
Plus, it's a perfect film for this full moon coming up.
Yeah.
The Neptune squaring the nodes in Pisces. I mean, come on, this is an excellent film. So if people are into movies, and I love the true stories that are turned into films. It's excellent. All right, thank you, Deva. So I know we went a little longer today, but I loved every bit of it. And for my inspirational close, I just want to let you all know, if you're not checking out the message board, and checking out the news stories and posting questions. We have a goddess thread there. Please check it out. This story came today. It was in the Washington Post, and it's a story about the fact that it's the end of the school year, right? You're getting your yearbooks. You remember the time you got your yearbook and you have your fellow classmates signing it, and some classmates would not sign Brody's yearbook. So some older students stepped in, and he came home and had only 2 signatures, and one of them, and maybe one of them was his own, and a couple teachers had signed his yearbook. Other students would, he would ask and they would say no. And so his mom posted a picture of his signature in his own yearbook that said something like, "I hope I have more friends next year." And it went on yearbook, and a lot of the parents for the school saw it, and some of the older kids in the high school saw it. And unbeknownst to them, other students in the upper grades were, reaching out to their friends, and they all lined up in front of his 6th grade classroom. He's only 12, lined up. They're juniors and seniors, because they're all, it's like a preschool to 12th grade. And they all were there to sign Brody's yearbook for him. And not only were they signing his yearbook, they were encouraging other classmates by their actions to stand in line as well. And one girl in particular just melted me. Gave a couple of them gave him their phone numbers and said, "If you never need me, if you're being bullied in any way, you call me right away." And she said, "Whoever is trying to bring you down is already below you." So that's my message for this week to, it blew me away that these upperclassmen, individually, they were reaching out to friends, and it just got around. And so it just, what an impact it could make on someone's life. One little thing can have a domino effect. That's the word of the day, right? With Mercury and Gemini, it can have a domino effect on others. I mean, look at this image. I just loved it so much. So a lot of kids are finishing the school year. They're getting their yearbooks. Some kids, aren't getting signatures in that yearbook. And so reach out, know that, one voice, it can turn into countless. And so I just love this story. I wanted to share it with you. And there's more stories like this on the message board and the news section. And we're there for you if anybody wants to post questions in the future. So anyway, make someone smile and reach out and be a voice and for upliftment. Here's our book that Linda Johnson has spearheaded. A lot of us were part of this journey with her. We miss her still and always. Natural Astrology, if you're interested, that's available. And as I mentioned before about the website, if you're interested in becoming a more serious student and you want to get the DVDs to become certified in EA or just to have them, they are timeless in their teachings, and we encourage you to check it out. Thank you, Deva and Stacie and Rose and Jordan and Rob and Sue for today. It was wonderful. I loved it all.
Wait, can anyone hear me right now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I would just like to take a moment to really think about Linda, because it's been a year. And this soul, there's no one like her. Or, she did so much for EA. She embodied the spirit of EA. I mean, her number one concern in life was to give, share, and include. And it was genuine. It was natural. She brought so many people to the table, and she brought so many people in contact with one another, and she gave us an avenue to learn, and she used her expertise to make things look like really jazzy and attractive, and like she just did so much, and she did it to the very end. And so I just want to acknowledge you, Linda. Not that she's in the sky, I know I'm looking up, but like I acknowledge you, Linda, and you will never die in my heart, and nor the hearts of anyone. And thank you for everything. And I love you.
Yeah, we just came through the 1-year anniversary of her passing, but it was definitely a true healing for her, I'm sure. So she's dancing and happy as we speak.
She got out at a good time.
She sure did. All right. Thank you so much, you all. And we'll be thinking of Linda following this, and always namaste.